kind of that base property. Now, I wanted to discuss kind of what happens. So when we actually go through, how do we end up here? How do we end up actually touching, or how does the system pull this in, right? Now, what happens is that if we run the command get process, so we're just about to run it, and we're going to see the output, right? And that's going to be nice and quick. But when I press enter, the first thing that happens is that get process gets run, and the output from get process, which is a list of process objects, gets piped into the pipeline, right? So everyone knows that the pipeline is essentially just when we're going through the program itself, all of the information gets thrown into the pipeline, and so that they can use each instead of just printing it out onto the screen, each new commandlet can go through and actually manipulate this object or whatever data we've thrown in there, right? So we can go through and we can pass. It's the same thing as like when we do pipe. If I do get process and we do pipe and then we throw it into something else, the pipe's really just grabbing the output from get process and passing it into the next command instead of just printing it out onto the screen, right? But if we just call without the pipe, then what's happening? Well, it's running through. There's no pipe, so it's just going right through that nice pipe and going right to the end where it calls out default. So we can actually go. I think it's an actual out default. Yeah, there we go. So out default is just another commandlet. By default, it actually gets called whenever you run a command, and you don't provide any special formatting or anything like that. This is the last thing that gets called. So it actually tells us exactly what's going to happen. Well, it sends the output to the default formatter and then the default output commandlet. So what this is doing is that it's sending it. The out default passes it to the out host. So there's another command called out host, right? And we've talked about this one before. So out host actually sends the output to the command line. Now out host goes in and it says, hey, I've got an object. What do I do with this? And so it goes to the formatting system on our computer and says, hey, what do I do with this? So it then gives the object to the formatting system. The formatting system goes in here and it says, hey, have I seen this object before? And since we're dealing with processes, it goes through and it says, hey, I've got a bunch of things that are of type system diagnostics process. So since I haven't been told anything else, let's just format it like this. So it just goes through and it pipes out all this information in this specific format. So it goes back, it says to the out host, it says, hey man, this is what I found, format it like this. And then out host just pipes it out in this pretty little way where we go get process and we see a nice table, right? Does that make sense? So again, walking through, when we run the process, it gets thrown into the pipeline. Then at the very end, right? At the very end, we have the default output or out dash default. That passes it into out dash host because we're on a command line, right? So that's actually man out host, and we can see it'll actually give us some information about this, sends output to the command line. This goes to the formatter, says, hey, what do I do with this? The formatter goes, looks it up inside of our nice file here, and then sends it back, and then out host says, this is how I'm going to present my data. That makes sense? Anyone have any questions?